My name is Clara Westfield, and I'm 29 years old. If you had met me 2 months ago, you would have seen a smiling woman in a silk blouse, holding her husband's hand at dinner parties, laughing at the right moments, and pretending that my life was perfect. It wasn't. 2 months ago, my father died. His passing wasn't sudden. Cancer had been eating him away for a year, but the funeral still felt like a knife to my chest. He was my anchor, my only real family. My mother had left us when I was 8, vanishing without explanation. Dad never remarried, never even dated again. The funeral was a blur of black suits, whispered condolences, and the bitter smell of lilies. My husband Daniel stood beside me, his hand firm on my lower back. Not in comfort, but as if to keep me upright for show. We'd been married for 3 years, and sometimes I forgot what genuine affection from him felt like. It wasn't until the reading of the will that my life truly cracked open. We gathered in my father's oak-paneled study, the air heavy with the scent of old books and cigar smoke that lingered from years past. The lawyer, a stooped man named Mr. Hughes, adjusted his glasses and began reading in a dry monotone. To my shock, my father had left me nothing. The entirety of my estate, including the house, assets, and investments, is to be transferred to Rebecca Sterling. Hughes read. "Who the hell is Rebecca Sterling?" I demanded before I could stop myself. My voice was sharp enough to make Daniel's jaw tighten. Hughes looked uncomfortable. "Miss Westfield, Rebecca Sterling is listed here as your sister." The room went silent. "I don't have a sister," I said flatly. Daniel's hand squeezed my arm. Too hard. "Clara, maybe—" "No," I snapped, pulling away. My father would have told me. He would have told me. But Hughes only shuffled the papers. "Mr. Rye, Westfield was quite clear in his instructions." The next day, I found myself at the address Hughes had given me for Rebecca. It was a small cottage on the edge of town, the kind of place you'd expect a retired librarian to live. But when the door opened, my breath caught. Rebecca looked exactly like me. Not similar, identical. Same hazel eyes, same dark waves of hair. Even the same faint scar above the eyebrow that I'd gotten from falling off my bike at 10. She just smiled, as if she'd been expecting me. "Hello, Clara," she said softly. "We have a lot to talk about." I wanted to demand answers, but my throat felt tight. I followed her inside, and that's when I saw the photographs. Dozens of them, in mismatched frames, covering her living room walls. All of them featured my father. In some, he had his arm around her. In others, she was a child sitting on his lap. "I don't understand," I whispered. Rebecca poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from me. "Dad raised me. Just not with you. Not with your mother." The way she said "your mother" made my skin prickle. "I thought he only had me," I said. "And what do you mean Dad raised you?" "He lived with me." Her smile faltered. "Clara, he had 2 lives." My stomach dropped. 2 lives? A secret daughter who looked exactly like me? And somehow she got everything in the will? "I didn't come here to fight," Rebecca said. "I came here to warn you." "Warn me?" Her eyes darkened. "Daniel is not who you think he is, and he's the reason Dad left you with nothing." I gripped the edge of the chair. "You'd better start talking." Rebecca leaned in. "Your husband was blackmailing our father, and I have proof." I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear his voice in my head, low and husky, saying things he never said to me anymore. I could see her laugh in the flicker of candlelight at the cafe, her hand lingering too long on his. By morning, I had decided, no, I needed to know the truth. I wasn't going to confront him blindly. I wanted proof. So I followed him. I skipped work, parked my car 3 blocks from his office, and waited. Around 11 a.m., he came out, without his briefcase. My pulse spiked. He walked fast, head down, checking his phone. I trailed him through the crowd, my hands shaking so badly I had to stuff them in my coat pockets. He turned into a quiet alley I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted. At the end of the alley was a small, discreet hotel, one of those places you rent by the hour. I almost blacked out. Through the half-open glass door, I saw her, the woman from the cafe. She wore the same deep red dress like she'd been waiting just for him. He smiled. God, that smile. And touched her cheek before they disappeared into the elevator. I wanted to storm in, scream, make a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone, snapped photos until my hands hurt, and walked away before my legs gave out completely. That night, he came home at 8:37 p.m., sharp, like nothing happened. He kissed my forehead, asked if I'd eaten, and complained about another long day at work. The audacity made me dizzy. I played along, I smiled. I even laughed at his joke about the neighbor's dog. But inside, I was laying bricks, building the wall between us, piece by piece. Over the next 2 weeks, I kept digging, following him, checking his credit card statements when he slept, reading his messages when he showered. The more I learned, the worse it got. The woman's name was Elena. She was younger than me, prettier, and this part made me choke. She worked at his company. But then something happened that shifted everything. One rainy Thursday, I was tailing him again. He left the office early, but instead of meeting Elena, he drove across town to a dimly lit parking garage. I parked 2 floors down and followed him on foot. He wasn't meeting her. He was meeting my brother. I froze behind a concrete pillar, heart pounding in my ears. My brother David looked tense, paler than usual, like he'd been caught in something he couldn't get out of. They spoke in hushed tones I couldn't hear over the hum of the fluorescent lights. Then my husband handed him a thick brown envelope. David took it, glanced around nervously, and slipped it into his jacket before walking away without another word. What the hell was going on? I thought the affair was the worst of it, but now? Now there was a second secret, and it had my family's fingerprints all over it. That night, I stared at my brother's contact on my phone for over an hour, my thumb hovering over the call button. But I didn't call. Not yet. Because something in my gut told me this wasn't just cheating. It was bigger, darker, and if I moved too soon, I might lose the only chance I had to uncover it all. I barely remember how I got home that night. My shoes were caked in mud, my hands trembling so hard I could barely fit the key into the lock. My mind was a hurricane. Leo's last words still echoing. Don't trust anyone, especially not your sister. The apartment was dark. I flicked on the hallway light and froze. There was a single envelope on the floor, slid under my door. No name, no address. Just a wax seal with a symbol I'd never seen before. 2 intertwined snakes. My gut tightened. I ripped it open. Inside was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance. Me, sitting with Leo in that cafe earlier today. On the back, one sentence scrawled in sharp, uneven handwriting. You have until midnight to hand over what's mine. I didn't own anything of theirs, at least not knowingly. But then I remembered the USB drive Leo had slipped into my coat pocket before vanishing into the rain. The same one I hadn't dared to check yet. I locked every bolt on the door and pulled out my laptop. The USB had no label, no markings. When I plugged it in, a folder popped up. Inside were hundreds of files. Bank transactions, offshore accounts, photographs of men I didn't know. But I recognized one face. My father. Not the man I grew up calling Dad. He died when I was 9. This was my biological father, the man my mother never talked about. The one she told me was dead to us. And here he was, standing beside men in suits, shaking hands over briefcases full of cash. I scrolled faster. There were documents with dates going back 20 years, detailing money laundering, political payoffs, even hit contracts. My stomach churned as one more name appeared in the files. Clara Monroe, my sister. I heard a noise, soft, deliberate, behind me. I spun around. Clara was standing in my kitchen doorway, dressed in black, a pair of leather gloves in her hand. You shouldn't have opened that, she said calmly, as if she were commenting on a wrong wine choice. My throat went dry. What the hell is this, Clara? What's going on? She stepped forward, her heels clicking against the tile. You were supposed to stay out of it, Mia. But you couldn't, could you? Always so curious. Always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I saw Dad, our father, in those files, I whispered. He's alive, and you've been working with him? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Not working with him, controlling him. And now, thanks to Leo, you've got something that belongs to me. My heart was pounding so loud I barely heard the faint beep, beep, beep sound at first. Then I noticed the small black device in her hand. It had a blinking red light. Clara? I took a step back. What is that? She tilted her head. A little insurance. This building has a very old gas line, Mia. I've been making some adjustments. You have about 5 minutes to decide whether you're going to give me the drive or... She glanced toward the ceiling where I suddenly smelled faint traces of gas. We both go up in smoke. Panic surged through me. My apartment, my neighbors, everything. It would all be gone. Clara, there are innocent people here. They're collateral. You've seen too much. This was always going to happen. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Without breaking eye contact with her, I slipped it out just enough to see the screen. Unknown number. A text. Balcony. Now. I didn't think. I moved. I lunged toward the balcony door, yanking it open just as a shadowy figure grabbed my arm and pulled me outside. It was Leo, his face half hidden under a hood. Jump, he hissed. We're on the 4th floor, I snapped. But then I saw the rope hanging down the side of the building. Inside, Clara was walking toward me, the device still blinking in her hand. Her expression was ice. Last chance, Mia. Leo shoved a small metal object into my hand. A gun, cold and heavy. If you want to live, you'll use it. I froze. I'd never held one before, and my mind screamed that if I fired, there was no going back. Clara saw it and laughed. A sharp, cutting sound. You think you can pull that trigger? You're still the scared little sister who cried when I killed your goldfish. The memory hit like a slap, but it also made something inside me snap. I raised the gun. Mia, she said softly, almost like a warning. Don't. The gas smell was stronger now. My vision tunneled. In that moment, I knew if I didn't stop her, everyone in this building would die. I squeezed the trigger. The sound was deafening in the small space. Clara's body jerked back, her eyes wide, not with fear, but with something almost like pride. She fell, the device clattering from her hand. Leo grabbed it instantly, flicking a switch. The blinking stopped. Sirens wailed in the distance. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the gun. I stared at Clara lying on my kitchen floor, the blood spreading too fast. You didn't have a choice, Leo said, his voice low but firm. I wasn't so sure. And then, Clara coughed. Her eyes fluttered open and she smiled faintly through the blood. You think... I was the one after you, she rasped. Oh, Mia, you have no idea who's coming. Her gaze shifted past me, to Leo, and for the first time since I'd met him, Leo looked afraid. I didn't sleep that night. Every shadow in my apartment felt alive. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like a warning. I sat cross-legged on the couch, clutching my phone like it was the last lifeline I had. By 2:37 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. The unanswered questions burned in my skull. Who was really behind all this? And why did they want me silent so badly? I put on my hoodie, tucked a small kitchen knife in my boot, and left the apartment. The air outside was cold enough to sting my lungs, and the streets were eerily empty. I wasn't going to the police. They'd already proven they couldn't be trusted. No, I had a different destination in mind. The old Riverside warehouse. It used to belong to my father's company before everything collapsed. Rumor had it someone had been using it lately. Someone who paid cash, left no name, and came and went at night. I reached the building and pressed myself against the brick wall. The smell of rust and wet wood filled the air. The metal door was locked, but I'd learned how to handle that years ago. My father's bad habits weren't all useless. With a bobby pin and some patience, the lock clicked open. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of shadows. Rows of old crates lined the walls. I moved quietly, my heart pounding in my ears. Then I saw it. A faint glow spilling from an office in the far corner. I approached, crouched low, and peered inside. My breath caught. A man sat at the desk, his back to me. But I knew that posture. That voice, low and deliberate, speaking into a burner phone. "She's still alive. I told you I'm handling it." It was Daniel. My Daniel. The man I thought had been helping me uncover the truth. I froze, bile rising in my throat. "She doesn't suspect anything," he continued. "Yes, the papers are gone. She'll never find them." My hand trembled around the knife handle. 100 memories flashed in my mind. His reassurances, his late-night texts, the way he always seemed to know where I was. I wanted to burst in and scream, but instinct told me to back away. I had to think. If Daniel was playing me, then he knew every move I'd made for weeks, which meant I was already in more danger than I thought. I took one slow step back. That's when my boot heel crunched on a shard of glass. Daniel stopped talking. The chair creaked as he turned. I bolted. My footsteps echoed through the empty space as I sprinted toward the door. I could hear him behind me faster than I expected. I pushed through the exit, stumbled into the cold night air, and kept running. A car engine roared to life. Headlights flared in the darkness. I cut through an alley, leapt over a trash bin, and ducked into a narrow gap between two buildings. My chest burned, my vision blurred, but I couldn't stop. The sound of tires screeching told me he was still hunting me. Finally, I slipped into the back entrance of a 24-hour laundromat. The hum of machines and the smell of detergent hit me like a strange comfort. I collapsed onto a plastic chair, trying to catch my breath. That's when I noticed the old man at the far corner, folding clothes with unnerving precision. He glanced at me once, then kept working, except he slid something small onto the folding table. A manila envelope. I stared. "It's for you," he said without looking up. "From your father." My blood ran cold. My father had been dead for 7 years. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were photographs. Grainy, black and white, but clear enough to make out faces. My father, Daniel, and someone else. A man in a dark suit, always standing slightly apart from the others. Tucked behind the photos was a single sheet of paper with 2 words written in my father's handwriting. "Trust no one." Before I could ask anything, the old man was gone. The laundromat door swung shut, and I was alone again. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. I stuffed it inside my hoodie and left through the front, scanning the street for danger. I didn't see Daniel's car. I didn't see anyone. But I felt watched. Always watched. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Nice run tonight," the voice said. It was Daniel, but colder, stripped of any charm. "Next time you won't get far." The line went dead, and for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't running toward the truth anymore. I was running for my life. I didn't sleep that night. The walls of the small motel room seemed to breathe with me as if holding their own kind of dread. Every tick of the clock was another drop of poison in my veins. By dawn, my decision was clear. I was going to end this, one way or another. I tucked the gun into the waistband of my jeans and drove. The city felt hollow, a carcass after the vultures had picked it clean. I wasn't going to the police. I'd tried that once. They'd just hand me over to the same people I was running from. No. This time I'd take the war to their doorstep. Their headquarters wasn't the shadowy abandoned factory I had imagined, but a pristine high-rise with mirrored windows reflecting the pale morning sky. Clean, professional, deadly. I walked through the front doors like I belonged there. Confidence is a weapon, and today I had to wield it like a blade. The elevator ride felt endless. By the time the doors opened at the 21st floor, my pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. 2 guards stepped forward. Too slow. The first one went down with a swift blow to the throat. The second folded after my elbow slammed into his temple. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the raw adrenaline screaming through me. Then, the office. And him. Victor was behind a massive desk, dressed in his usual tailored suit, his expression a mask of calm. Too calm. "I knew you'd come," he said as if we were meeting for coffee. "You killed Marcus," I hissed, my voice breaking. "Marcus killed himself," he replied smoothly. "I just gave him the reason." The rage inside me surged. I pulled the gun. "You destroyed everything I had." He smiled, an almost gentle smile, and slid a folder across the desk. "Look inside," he said. I didn't want to, but I did. Photographs, dozens of them. Me, over years. Some from before I even knew Victor existed. Notes in neat handwriting about my routines, my relationships, my weaknesses. And at the center, a single page. It was Marcus's handwriting. "When she finds out, she'll never forgive me. But she'll survive. She always does." My stomach turned. "You were working together?" Victor leaned back. "Not exactly. Let's just say Marcus sold you the moment he realized you were smarter than him." I couldn't breathe. The man I had loved, the man I thought had died protecting me, had been the one to hand me over. The sound of the gun cocking echoed like thunder, and it wasn't mine. I turned. Marcus was standing in the doorway, alive. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said softly. I froze. "You're alive?" His eyes were unreadable. "I had to disappear. You wouldn't have understood. You faked your death? You let me burn for you?" My voice was shaking now, and not from fear, from heartbreak. "It was the only way to protect you," he said, but his tone cracked on the last word. I realized then, both of them were lying, in different ways, for different reasons. And I was the prize in a game I never agreed to play. The next few seconds were chaos. Marcus raised his gun. Victor reached for a drawer. I didn't think. I moved. My shot rang out first, and Victor slumped over his desk, a crimson bloom spreading across his perfect suit. Marcus stared at me, shocked, but not in fear. Almost proud. "You always were the strongest," he whispered. Then he smiled and pulled the trigger. I woke up in a hospital bed, a searing pain in my side. The nurse said a stranger had brought me in, left no name, and vanished. The bullet had missed my vital organs by an inch. The stranger had also left something else. A sealed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Me and Marcus, smiling years ago. On the back, in his handwriting, "This was never about saving you. It was about seeing what you'd become without me." I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Because in that moment, I understood. The game was never over. And maybe I didn't want it to be.